It wasn't a monster, not at first. It was just a feeling. A cold dread that coiled in my stomach as I stared at the paused frame on my monitor, the pixels shimmering with a kind of digital heat. I'd seen it. For a split second, in a chaotic burst of static between two scenes of a childhood birthday party, something had looked back at me. Not at the camera that was filming in 1998, but at times, now, sitting in my dimly lit apartment 25 years later. It saw me through time, through the layers of magnetic tape and digital conversion, and I knew, with a certainty that defied all logic, that my life was about to be irrevocably fractured. This is a new channel with incredible stories every day. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. My name is Leo. I'm 31, and by day, I'm a user interface designer. I build clean, logical, user-friendly systems for software companies. Everything is ordered. Everything has a reason, a place for every pixel, and every pixel in its place. But by night, I'm something else. I'm a digital archaeologist, a retro tech enthusiast, a nostalgia junkie. My small home office isn't filled with the sleek, minimalist tech of my day job. It's a sanctuary of the obsolete. A hulking CRT television sits in the corner, its curved glass screen like a dark, unblinking eye. Shelves are lined with old video game consoles, Walkmans, and stacks upon stacks of VHS tapes. I love the clunky, physical nature of it all. The satisfying zumsh-clunking zums of a tape being inserted into a VCR, the mechanical whirring as it threads the tape. It's the smell of warm plastic and ozone, a scent that teleports me back to a simpler time. For me, these aren't just objects, they're time capsules. Each tape holds a captured piece of the past, preserved in a fragile magnetic ribbon. My obsession started innocently enough. I began collecting old commercial tapes, then moved on to digitizing them, cleaning them up, and archiving them. It was a hobby, a way to connect with the texture of a world that was fading away. A few months ago, while helping my parents clean out their attic, I hit the jackpot, a dusty cardboard box labeled Family Memories. Inside were dozens of home videos, Christmases, vacations, school plays, and birthdays. My entire childhood documented on grainy, standard definition tape. I was ecstatic. This was the Holy Grail, not just someone's history, but my time history. I spent the next few weekends meticulously cataloging them, my heart swelling with a bittersweet warmth as I watched my younger self, my parents looking so young, our old dog chasing a ball in the yard. It was beautiful. It was perfect. The tape that changed everything was labeled Elio's 7th birthday, 1999. I remembered that day vividly. A magician, a bouncy castle, and a chocolate cake that I'd smeared all over my face. I threaded the tape into my best VCR, a professional-grade JVC deck I'd spent a small fortune on, and connected it to my digitizing hardware. I hit play, and the familiar blue screen gave way to the wobbly, saturated colors of home video. There I was, a gap-toothed kid with a bowl cut, tearing open presents. There were my friends, my grandparents. Every frame was a shot of pure, unadulterated joy. I was so engrossed in the memories that I almost missed it. The first part of the tape ended. My dad, who was filming, had clearly stopped recording to change his position. The screen cut to that familiar, chaotic static, that brief moment of snow and noise before the next scene begins. It lasted maybe a second. But in that second, I saw something. It wasn't the usual random assortment of black and white dots. For a single, almost imperceptible frame, the static seemed to coalesce. It formed a shape, tall, thin, impossibly dark. Then it was gone, and the next scene began, me blowing out the 7 candles on my cake. I paused the video. My heart was thumping a little faster. What was that? I rewound the tape, the VCR groaning in protest. I played it again, my eyes glued to the screen. There it was again, a flicker, an anomaly. I played it in slow motion, the happy scene of me with my presents. Then play click. The recording stops. The screen erupts into a blizzard of static, and for one, maybe two, frames, the snow resolves itself into a long, distorted silhouette standing in what looked like a stark white room. It was humanoid, but wrong. The limbs were too long, the torso too narrow. It had no discernible features, just a vague, man-shaped blot of pure black. It was like a shadow without a source, burned directly onto the tape. My logical mind immediately kicked in. Tape degradation. I told myself. A magnetic bleed-through from another recording. An artifact of the aging medium. This was a 25-year-old tape, after all. It was bound to have flaws. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. It didn't look like any tape damage I'd ever seen before. The figure was too deliberate. It felt less like a random error, and more like something that had been intentionally placed there, hiding in the breakdown of the signal. This was the first twist, the first sign that this wasn't just about restoring old memories. The mystery was too compelling to ignore. I spent the rest of the night trying to isolate it. I digitized that 1-second clip at the highest possible resolution, importing it into my video editing software. I went through it frame by frame. Most of the frames were pure, random static. But then there were the two, frame 23 and 24. In frame 23, the silhouette was there, static, still clinging to its edges, but its form was undeniable. It stood perfectly still. In frame 24, its head, a featureless oval, was tilted slightly. Tilted. As if it was looking at the camera, at my dad, or, I thought with a shudder, at me. The next day, I couldn't focus on work. My mind kept returning to that dark figure. I decided I needed a second opinion. I took a high-quality screenshot of frame 23 and posted it on Retro Obscura, an online forum for vintage media enthusiasts and technicians. I titled the post, "Weird Artifact on an Old Family VHS. Ever seen anything like this?" I explained the context, keeping my tone neutral and technical. I didn't mention the feeling of being watched. I didn't want them to think I was crazy. I just wanted an explanation. The responses started trickling in. Most were what I expected.
Classic signal dropout.
One user, Pixel_Peaker, commented,
The magnetic particles are probably flaking off the tape. Try cleaning the VCR heads.
Another user, Analog_Al, wrote,
Could be overscan data from the TV station that was on the channel before your dad recorded over it. Sometimes you get weird stuff in the margins.
I followed all the advice. I meticulously cleaned the VCR heads. I tried playing the tape on 3 different machines, including my old family VCR, that I'd also recovered from the attic. The result was the same on every single one. The figure was there, unchanged. Then came a response that made my blood run cold. It was from a user named glitch_seeker_79.
This isn't a standard tape error.
They wrote,
The form is too coherent. It looks like a burn-in, but burn-in doesn't happen on magnetic tape. I've heard of stories, urban legends mostly, about signal ghosts or residual consciousness getting trapped in analog recordings. Most people dismiss it as nonsense, but be careful. Don't focus on it too much.
Signal ghosts? Residual consciousness? It sounded like something out of a low-budget horror movie. I tried to laugh it off, but the warning resonated with the unease I already felt. The more I looked at the image, the more it seemed to look back. The tension in my apartment was becoming a physical presence. The familiar, comforting hum of my old equipment now sounded menacing. Every shadow in the corner of my eye seemed to stretch and lengthen. I was becoming paranoid, jumping at the slightest noise. I was starting to lose sleep over it. I'd sit there, staring at the screen, wondering if I was just projecting my fears onto a meaningless pattern of static. Am I creating this monster in my own mind? Have you ever obsessed over something so much that it starts to feel real? What would you have done in my place? Write it in the comments. Would you have just thrown the tape away and tried to forget? I couldn't. I had to understand. I decided to digitize the rest of the tapes from the box. Maybe this was a one-off, a freak accident on a single tape. I spent the entire weekend in a trance, converting tape after tape. Christmas, 97. Beach trip, 2001. Leo's first bike ride. I fast-forwarded through the content, my eyes scanning only for the breaks between scenes. The static. My hope dwindled with each tape. It was in all of them. Every single one. Hiding in the chaotic noise between the happy memories. Sometimes it was just a faint, almost unnoticeable smudge. Other times, like in the footage of my 10th birthday, it was clearer, more defined. Always the same tall, slender shape. It was like a parasitic entity that had latched onto my recorded childhood. My beautiful, warm memories now felt contaminated, violated. This was the emotional low point. The realization that this thing, whatever it was, had been there all along. A silent, unseen observer at every milestone of my life. Was it there in the room with us, invisible to the naked eye but somehow captured by the magnetic field of the camera? Or was it something that lived inside the technology itself? The thought was terrifying. My sanctuary of nostalgia had become a haunted house, and I was the one who had unlocked the door to the ghost's room. I felt a strange mix of terror and defiance. I wasn't going to let it win. I wasn't going to be scared away from my own past. I downloaded advanced video forensic software, the kind used by law enforcement to enhance grainy surveillance footage. I was determined to get a clearer look at this thing. I loaded the clip from my 7th birthday, the clearest one, into the program and began applying filters, sharpening algorithms, noise reduction, contrast enhancement. I worked for hours, my face inches from the screen, tweaking levels, trying to pull a face from the featureless oval of its head. And that's when it happened. I applied one final, experimental filter, an edge detection algorithm designed to find hidden shapes and complex visual noise. The program processed for a moment, and then the image snapped into a new, horrific clarity. The static around the figure dissolved. It wasn't standing static. The static was like a curtain, and it was peeking through it. And I could see its face. There were no eyes, no nose, no mouth. It was a smooth, pale, and perfectly blank surface, like polished bone. But the worst part was its posture. It was no longer just standing there. It was leaning forward, its head cocked at an unnatural angle. One of its impossibly long, thin arms was raised, its hand out of frame, as if it were pressing against the very fabric of the image, trying to push its way through the screen. I recoiled from my desk, a strangled gasp escaping my lips. My chair flew backward and hit the wall. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't an artifact. This was a Tonti being, an entity, trapped or hiding within the analog signal, and my obsessive focus was acting like a beacon, drawing its attention. Glitch_seeker_79's warning echoed in my head.
Don't focus on it too much.
I had done the exact opposite. I had magnified it, enhanced it, and given it my undivided attention. The days that followed were a blur of paranoia. I stopped watching the tapes, but the image was burned into my mind. I started seeing it everywhere. The tall, thin shape of a coat on a rack in a dark hallway, the way shadows pooled in the corner of a room. I felt a constant, prickling sensation on the back of my neck, the feeling of being watched. I began to wonder about the nature of reality itself. Were there things living in the frequencies all around us, in the radio waves, the television signals, the Wi-Fi that permeates our air? And had I, by sheer, stupid chance, found a way to see one of them? Do you think I was right to keep digging? Or should I have listened to that warning? I honestly don't know if I made the right choice. The climax came on a Tuesday night. A storm was raging outside, rain lashing against my windows, the sky periodically lighting up with flashes of lightning. The power had been flickering all evening. I was trying to distract myself with work, but my eyes kept darting to the corner where my VCR stack sat, unplugged but still radiating a sense of latent menace. I had deleted all the digitized files from my computer, hoping that severing the connection would solve the problem. I had performed a digital exorcism. Suddenly, my main monitor, a large 4K display, flickered. It went black for a second, then erupted into a screen full of roiling, monochromatic static. It wasn't the clean, digital noise of a lost signal. It was the messy, organic static from the VHS tape. My blood ran cold. I hadn't played those files in over a week. They were gone. Deleted. Wiped from my hard drive. But here it was. My other monitors flickered to life, all displaying the same chaotic snow. The sound of hissing static filled the room, drowning out the storm outside. I was paralyzed, my hands frozen over my keyboard. And then, in the very center of my main screen, the static began to part like a curtain. The figure emerged. Not as a still image, but in full, fluid motion. It was clearer than it had ever been before. It straightened up to its full, terrifying height, its blank face seemingly staring directly into my soul. For a moment, it just stood there, a silent nightmare framed by the digital storm. Then, slowly, with an unnatural grace, it raised its right arm. The arm stretched, the fingers long and spidery, and it pointed. It wasn't pointing at the memory of a 7-year-old boy. It was pointing out of the screen. It was pointing directly at me. At that exact moment, a colossal clap of thunder shook the entire building. My lights didn't just flicker this time, they died. The monitors went black. My apartment was plunged into absolute, suffocating darkness. The only light was the afterimage of that pointing hand, burned into my retinas like a camera flash. The sudden silence was more terrifying than the noise. And in that silence, I heard it. A soft, dry, scratching sound. It was coming from the corner of the room, the corner where the CRT television stood. It was no longer on the screen. It was in the room with me. My heart was trying to beat its way out of my chest. If you've ever felt that kind of pure, paralyzing fear, you know what I mean. And if this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, take a second to subscribe, because what happens next is something I'm still trying to process. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen in the dark. It could have been 10 seconds or 10 minutes. The scratching stopped. And then, with a hum and a flicker, the power came back on. My lamps blinked to life. My computer rebooted to its normal desktop screen. The room was exactly as I had left it. There was nothing in the corner, no sign of disturbance. It was just an empty, silent room. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. The glitch wasn't just in the tape anymore. I had looked into it, and it had looked back. And in that moment of shared focus, the barrier between its world and mine had become permeable. I haven't touched any of my retro tech since that night. The VCRs are covered in a sheet. The tapes are back in their box, sealed and hidden away in a storage unit miles from my home. It didn't work. The connection is already made. I don't see it on screens anymore. I see it in the real world. A fleeting glimpse of a tall, dark figure in the reflection of a shop window. A shadow in my peripheral vision that vanishes the moment I turn to look. Sometimes, when the house is perfectly quiet, I can hear a faint, high-frequency hiss, like the sound of an untuned television, coming from just over my shoulder. It's no longer a glitch in the tape. It's a glitch in my reality. It's tethered to me now. The tape wasn't the prison. It was the keyhole. And I was the one who kept turning the key until the lock finally broke. I don't know what it is or what it wants. I only know that it's watching me. Was it always there, in the background of my life, and the technology was just the first thing to capture its image? Or did my obsession pull it out of the noise and into my world? Share your thoughts or theories in the comments. I read all of them, because honestly, I'm scared, and I don't know what to do. Next.